Welcome back, brewers, to another one of our Brew With Us videos. My name's Jim, this is Rob. We're somewhere a bit special today, aren't we, Rob?
We are indeed. We are at Unity Brewing Co in Southampton, and we're here because it's all about a beer called Conflux.
Conflux is Unity's flagship hazy pale ale, soft, crushable.
Man, just soft mouthfeel, the head.
And it's all come about because of a homebrew competition that the good folks over at the Hop Edition podcast are running. We're here today to learn all about that beer style, learn about the brewery, spend a bit of time with Jimmy, and really get under the skin of how to brew that beer at home for yourself. So without further ado, Rob,
let's do it. Jimmy, absolutely delighted to be here at the Unity Brew Co today at your brewery and tap room.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for me having you.
No worries. No, we're absolutely delighted and for you to take time out of your manically busy schedule and impart information that we can forward to our homebrewing customers.
Great.
Is absolutely fantastic. So what a resource. Firstly, just let us know a little bit about how Unity started and perhaps the team and what.
Yeah, so I started it in 2016 after I did my time at about 5 other breweries before starting Unity, and was a terrible employee. And I wanted to do it my way, so I was like, well,
sure.
Let's do it my way then, you know. So it kicked off in 2016, and we've just grown from there really. Boiler operations manager was my first full-time employee, who ran a pub in Southampton, used to buy loads of beer from us, and he wanted to leave and took him on board.
I tell you what, some of our best employees have been people that we've already know the business, their customers, or it works really well.
The team's really like that actually as well. It's like Dan, our brewery assistant, who's doing loads of kegging today, he was just a massive fan and just started hassling me for a job.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, actually it's quite handy. Nice. We do need your help.
So Jimmy, what's led us here today is the homebrew competition that the Hop Edition podcast are running, along with Unity, and we're also sponsoring that competition, and that's all to do with this beer, or at least the style of this beer.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
So can you tell us? Well, let's know about the beer.
Yeah. So I mean, the competition's a competition inspired by Conflux, which is our flagship beer.
Yep.
So we really want to kind of encourage homebrewers to get into the way that we make beer here, but also the sort of style of pale ale that we really like to make as well, which we think is an absolute winner. In the States, obviously, and over here as well, Hazy IPA is the big thing, and 6% upwards. But I think that 4.8%, 5%, kind of New England style beer is just perfect because you get all that juice, but you can have pints of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what Conflux is all about. It's about a really satisfying, super fruity, super juicy beer that you can, have a couple of a weeknight, or, you can have a session with your friends, and, it can either be that beer that you go, oh, I'm getting this and that from the hops, or a beer that you don't even think about when you're having a conversation, That's what it's all about, this beer.
So let's just delve a little bit closer into the actual recipe of the beer. Now, I noticed that there's, along with pale malt, there's dextrin, but there's also flaked wheat along with wheat malt and oats as well. Now, so that's quite a lot of adjuncts in there, and
it's all about layering mouthfeel and having a sort of more complex array of proteins that is going to help build that really. And so the wheat malt itself, it aids with head retention. So oat malt or flaked oats, there's a little bit of lipids there.
Yeah.
So if you use a huge amount of oats, then your head retention suffers a tiny bit. And I'm absolutely obsessed with head retention.
Yeah, I know. Well, I can see that. One of the things that you remark on this beer is the really nice, light, fluffy white head on there, which is like, which obviously lasts.
I want it to look like it tastes,
Yeah.
And that kind of fluffy, really soft, almost like a cotton blanket of a mouthfeel, is what that's all about. And a large amount of wheat malt really helps with that. I mean, you think the perfect example is Hefeweizen. Everyone's always known that Hefeweizen are, amazingly soft, lovely mouthfeel to them.
And big body.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's just layering that up. So the majority of the non-barley malts are is just wheat malt, and then we have a little bit of torrefied wheat, flaked wheat. And that again just adds some more slightly complex proteins because it's not been malted. And then the oats, there's a certain silkiness that oats give.
Yeah.
That
slickness. Yeah.
And we played around with this recipe without having the oats in it at all. And so it was just wheat, dextrin and barley. And it did miss that slight. So there's just a little bit of flaked oats in there just to give that silkiness in there. And the dextrin's in there to add a little bit of sweetness.
Yeah.
Give some balance to it.
Well, actually, it's a 4.8 beer that's drinking like a. It's actually.
Yeah.
It's still crushable, but it's got real big mouthfeel on
Yeah.
it, so it really feels like a bigger beer, really.
Yeah, it has a reasonable amount of residual sugar.
Yeah. So what about hops? What are we looking at?
We're looking at Citra predominantly.
Yeah.
So it's about 90% of the hop bill is Citra, and then we use a little bit of Idaho 7, which adds a little bit more flavour complexity. So it's really, both hops are really high in survivable compounds. Citra is obviously really high in linalool, which is that lemony character.
Yeah, sure.
But you won't get as much of that linalool character if you don't have a really high geraniol hop in there.
Do you know, right, so recently been to the States where I've been to lectures about this, and using one hop, a small amount of one hop, to really supercharge the other is something that they're doing massive amount of research in at the moment.
And Idaho 7's brilliant. I mean, Idaho 7's one of those great hops that is brilliant on its own.
Yeah.
But in just 10% of that hop bill, it's absolutely like lifts the fruit character.
Absolutely, yeah.
This beer and adds that slight tropical, more like candied fruit note to it as well.
So,
and then the yeast does its thing too.
So all in the dry hop and in the whirlpool.
In the whirlpool, nothing in the kettle
involved.
at all.
Yeah.
Whirlpool between 77 and 80 degrees because we don't want a lot of bitterness in there.
Yeah, sure.
We want just enough.
Yeah.
It's 3 grams a litre total in the whirlpool.
Okay.
And that's the only hot side hopping. And then this is only about 9.5 grams a litre dry hop.
Yeah, you're getting the most out of them.
Yeah.
You're definitely getting the most out of them.
Yeah.
And that might be helped by the yeast strain that you're using, which is?
It's a version of London L3.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is full of glycerol. And for me, you can't make a hazy or an East Coast or New England, whichever words you want to choose for it, without a very high glycerol yeast strain. So, you know, London L3, London Fog, the Verdant yeast, all of those are really great for adding quite a lot of glycerol, which again accentuates that mouthfeel. You've
been generous enough to give us the full recipe for our customers to be able to brew this at home. And obviously we're stocking your beers, so you can buy a recipe pack with a couple of beers or more to go with it as well. Just before we leave this particular pale, let's just talk about your water profile for this, because I want to lead into the differences between brewing this and like a West Coast pale. So how does that differ between the two styles? Because this is a really important point.
It's like the opposite. So our base water here in Southampton is really high in calcium, which isn't necessarily ideal for hazy beers. Normally you like to get it down to about sort of between 70 and 90 parts per million calcium if you can. So avoid those using calcium sulfite and calcium chloride. We use sodium chloride salt, table salt, and magnesium sulfite if we're adding sulfites. But our base water is 120, which is really high. And for a while it bothered me. But now I know it's what's really nice about it is it's a flavour of the place where the beer is made, you know. And having that character makes our beer taste like ours. So I've learned to really like it actually, because that slight dryness that gives actually really helps with the drinkability. But you know, from a homebrew perspective, you can do whatever you like, and so you can put it right on spec. And so I'd say 70 to 90. 90 is quite a good place for calcium. But with West Coast, you have the opportunity to enjoy that calcium. And so we kind of flip it on its head. So we do our West Coast water profile is about 200 parts per million sulfate. So about 150 calcium.
Okay, so
and
we're
so
looking
it's
at
it's a different ratio.
Yeah.
And then the base calcium, we've got that 120. Even though like really classic West Coast IPAs will be even up to 300 parts per million calcium. I want to keep our West Coast IPA still in that slight touch softer than traditional, and also just massive drinkability, you know, and still have. I'm obsessed with having a really nice, very pleasant mouthfeel in my beer.
Sure, yeah.
And that means that even our West Coast IPAs, I want to be really smooth, rather than like really super sharp and bitey.
Yeah.
You know.
The style has somewhat changed over
Yeah.
like the last 10 years or so.
And that's it. And without that sweetness to balance that really like hefty water treatment. So our West Coast IPAs we brew. The flip side to our hazy IPAs that have got a lot of protein malts in them, we want as little as protein as possible.
Yeah.
And so we don't even use caramel malts or crystal malts or anything like that.
I think we've already learned that the use of caramel and crystal malt strips out hop flavour really quite extensively.
Exactly that, and that's the thing we're looking for: big hop intensity in every sort of beer that we make. And so we just use extra pale malt, maybe a little bit of Pilsner malt or something like that.
Yeah.
Tiny bit of dextrin just for a touch of sweetness to balance the bitterness. Sometimes a little bit of wheat just for head retention.
Yeah.
The tiniest amount, because we want it to be really lean, really crisp, super drinkable.
Yeah, so sort of like 3% of the malt bill perhaps for the wheat addition.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's the two styles flip on its head, and then the hopping is a whole different world in itself as well. So,
Again, so you're not using any kettle hops?
No kettle hops on the West Coast side. Well, we use hop extract at the start to get a really accurate balance of bitterness, so we know exactly how much we're putting in.
And you can repeat that every single time. Yeah.
And also the extract we use gives a really nice smooth bitterness.
Okay.
So it's great, and it means we can fill the whirlpool up a little bit more with more aroma hops.
Yeah, because you're not losing as much work
exactly
because of absorption. Yeah, cool.
Which is what we want.
Yeah,
if I can get more flavour in it, I'm gonna.
yeah, absolutely. That's what it's all about. So Jimmy, we're definitely going to head back to Malt Miller HQ and brew this Conflux.
Sure.
We're going to get it brewed and packaged, and we'll get some back to you so that you can do a side-by-side test and
nice one.
see how we've
if
got
we can win the competition.
to see if we can. But you've also been generous enough to give us the recipe for another beer. Can you just give us the title?
That's right.
What we should be heading towards for that beer?
Yeah, cool. So we're just brewing this week a beer called Swim Club, which is a really modern West Coast IPA.
Yeah.
Well, a pale ale actually, so it's 5.2%. And the whole thing about that, so as I was talking about with our really lean malt bill, really modern West Coast style, so it's hopped with Simcoe, Cryo, Idaho 7 and Mosaic. And so I'm looking for, the Simcoe Cryo gives that top piney note.
Yeah.
But I'm looking for really juicy fruitiness as well to really bring that kind of proper lovely summery whole character, whilst also being that really crisp, lean, super quenching bitterness,
Yeah, nice.
Because at this time of year, especially today, it's boiling, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. We've got a bit of cloud cover, but it's still absolutely roasting today. So no, I can't wait to really get into that recipe, dial it down, and get it brewed. So yeah, two beers from you. That's absolutely fantastic news. And I'd just finish off by saying it's really great to come to a brewery that is just such a great part of the community. Such as today, we've got a food club running, and you're brewing in the back, and the food club's running in the tap room. It's as a brewery should be, which is part of the community. It's an asset to the community. So congratulations on building that. That's a really cool thing to do.
That's what we called ourselves Unity, so we've got to live by it.
Fantastic.
That's an important part of us as a company.
Nice. Thanks for your generosity.
Right.
Cheers.
Thanks for having us.
No worries. Cheers.
Nice one. Cheers.
What a fantastic day we had at Unity down in Southampton, meeting Jimmy and the team.
Yeah, it was excellent, wasn't it? Really good to spend some time down there. Lovely brewery, great tap room, and really, really nice to see a brewery that's embedded in the community such as Unity.
As with all of the different breweries that we've brewed with in this series, we learn loads and take something away from each brewery that we didn't know before. So that's what this is all about.
Yeah, exactly. And we've come back now to Malt Miller HQ to start brewing our version of Conflux using the recipe that Jimmy's given us. And the first thing we've really focused on in consideration for this brew is our water treatment. They've actually embraced the slightly higher calcium content. That gives the beer a bit of identity. And so to help us get to that, the first thing we've done is we've used RO water using an RO filter, which we sell. And we've then added back in the additions to the specification that Jimmy's given us, which is on the recipe instructions when you purchase the kit.
So Jim, let's take a look at the recipe for Conflux.
Yes, so we'll start with the malt bill, and it's made up predominantly of extra pale malt. Then we've got some wheat malt in there, which adds the great head retention that Jimmy was really passionate about.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
We've got flaked oats, flaked wheat, and a little bit of carapils in there as well, Rob.
Yeah, that's the Dextrin edition. So it's just building body, and also the flaked wheat and the malted wheat. It's all about building body and creating that nice fluffy head.
So that's the grist. Now if we take a little bit of a closer look at the hops, it's really simple. We've got Idaho 7 and Citra used in both Whirlpool, nothing else in the boil, only at Whirlpool. And then we've got Idaho 7 and Citra again in dry hop.
Yeah, now this is where he was talking about just a small addition of the Idaho 7 supercharging the Citra edition. Using hops together that work in conjunction, one boosts the flavour profile of the other.
And then to round things off, we're going to be using Y Yeast's London Ale 3 to ferment our beer with. So Rob, should we crack on and dough in?
Let's do it. So Jim, the Conflux brew day is done. How did it all go?
Yeah, really good actually, really good. We've got 21 litres in our fermenter, which is about where we were aiming when you take into account what's left in the kettle afterwards. You can't get all of it out. Hit our numbers, absolutely spot on, 1050, and the wort smelled amazing.
Yeah, actually the whole of the brew school area up here smelled absolutely stunning whilst that was whirlpooling.
Yeah,
really
all that Citra and Idaho 7 really, spot on. And the colour of the wort's beautiful as well.
Yeah, just exactly what you were shooting for.
The Y Yeast smack pack worked, and it was absolutely bulging by the time we went to put it in.
Raging. So what about the boil, Jim?
So boil was a little bit tricky, right? And it's worth noting if you're brewing this recipe at home, because there's no hops that go in at the beginning.
Yeah, and those hops help break the surface tension and
you do run the risk of a boil over. And we definitely got close to that happening. Got in there with a mash paddle, gave it a good stir, sprayed it down with a bit of water just to kind of take the edge off of it. Now there are some things you can add to the boil that help with this. So we've put some links in the description if you want to put some into your basket when you order the recipe, or if you've got other methods at home that work for you when you don't add hops to the boil, then by all means, crack on with that. Now, if you've enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, make sure you hit the bell for notifications so you can keep up to date with what we're doing here at the Malt Miller. And don't forget, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.